Purdue pulls out a 79-72 comeback victory over the Hawkeyes, but it wasn't pretty. This team has problems, and Matt Painter, he's going to have to solve them.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network where it's your team every day. I am your host. I am Nick Arvin. I talk Boilermakers every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the only daily Purdue show out there. Also write about Purdue for Purdue 24/7. And today, well, we're reacting to last night's victory over the Iowa Hawkeyes. And it was not pretty by any stretch of the imagination. There are serious concerns on the defensive side, and I think there may be a little bit of a deeper answer there. So we're going to get into all of that today. We're also going to talk player grades, who showed up, who didn't, and Purdue's victory over the Hawkeyes, and then finish off today's episode taking a look at Joe Lunardi's newest bracketology. So make sure you stick with us for that. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. But this game last night, this is one where I sit here a few hours, 12 hours after the fact, just thinking that, yes, you improve 6-0 in conference play, and ultimately that's the goal, but that's not the takeaway that I have out of this Iowa victory. More so, it's a takeaway of being afraid or being scared, more or less, about Purdue's defense, because it was really bad against Iowa in this game, and it's starting to become a little bit of a trend, because ever since Big Ten games have started up in 2026, you look back to Washington, Wisconsin, those two games, and then you follow up with this performance. The defense has not been good for Purdue as of late in 2026. It just hasn't. And in this game, yes, you can credit some of Iowa's shots to just hitting the rim, slopping in, going around the basket and falling in. That's okay. They may have gotten lucky at some times, but that wasn't it for Purdue. They don't get themselves into the hole they got themselves to in this game if it was just a lucky shooting night from Iowa, because for Purdue, they weren't giving the effort necessary on the defensive side of the ball, and that's why I'm more concerned than anything. It's just the lack of effort that I saw from Purdue in this game. When you look at the defense, they were just not even getting hands in guys' faces for three. And you look at Iowa starting out the game 5 for 5 from three-point range. That had a lot to do with it. Just the lack of effort, forcing those guys into tough shots from three-point range. That was something. But then as the game progresses, Iowa, they were really able to commit to start up that multi-dimensional offense, because although the three ball fell and they were able to stretch out Purdue's defense, then the miscommunication inside started, where Iowa, they were able to pass the ball inside. They were able to get those looks, and they were getting it right to the rim. Easy layups that should never be allowed for a team that has three bigs like Trey Kaufman Renn, like Oscar Clough, and a rim protector, and Daniel Jacobsen. That should be unacceptable, to let guys inside as easy as Iowa was getting to the basket in this game, but they were, and that's why they were able to get a lead early the way that they were. And then going into this game, Trey Kaufman Renn specifically, and I don't want to call him out because he's been good for Purdue this year, but this game specifically, I look at him as a leader of this team and say, where is the effort from you? A season-low rebounding numbers, just 2 rebounds in this game. On the offensive side, he had 10 points, but you could tell the effort wasn't there when something didn't go Purdue's way. I didn't like the body language that Trey Kaufman Renn had as a leader in this game, and he's one of my favorite players, but you can't perform that way, and as a leader, you can't have that outlook if you want to get your team back into games. And lucky enough for Purdue, they were able to get back in this game, but it wasn't because of Trey Kaufman Renn. Honestly, the bigs in this game just weren't that good for Purdue. So now I'm concerned that this is going to stretch into a problem going into the future, because we've already seen, if we take a look at Purdue's performances so far in 2026 in these conference games, you give up 72 points to Iowa in a game that you very well could have lost. You give up 85 points to Penn State in a game that was very similar in the way that these two teams scored. Washington, you gave up 73 points. In Wisconsin, you gave up 73 points down towards the end. This is an issue that is starting to persist for Purdue. And yes, they've won all these games because, quite frankly, I don't think that Purdue has played a Big Ten team quite yet that is just going to beat them in terms of talent. Purdue has been more talented than all the teams they've played so far in Big Ten play. And a 6-0 record does reflect that, but that doesn't change the fact that you're going to face off against a Michigan State. That doesn't change the fact you're going to face off against a Michigan and Illinois and Nebraska down the road. And that's intimidating for a team that really hasn't figured it out so far on the defensive side, where the effort is not there, and you're just letting teams stay in these games because this isn't a formula that's going to be able to be upkept going into the future. You aren't going to be able to succeed long-term letting teams stay in these games. Eventually, you're going to drop one. And Purdue, they've had the luxury where they haven't dropped a game yet. They're still 6-0 in Big Ten play. But I don't know how long that continues if Purdue's defense continues to play this way. Now, you got that West Coast trip going into this weekend. You've got USC on Friday, I think, and then UCLA the following week. Honestly, I think Purdue loses a game in here if they don't get this figured out quick, because you can't go on the road like that. And the defense isn't going to travel when they haven't been playing up to standard at Mackey Arena. Penn State goes off on you. Iowa State goes off on you. And if you don't have Braden Smith that turns into a superhuman in these games, you likely get upset in both of them. And that's what I want to talk about. In the second half, Braden Smith practically willed this Purdue team back into this game. The Bennett Sturts matchup, the Braden Smith matchup, now it was elite. CJ, he did his best when he was on Bennett to start out this game, and I thought that Cox did a great job as that point of attack defender on Bennett Sturts. But when the bench came in, when CJ had to sit, it was just a mismatch for everyone else on the floor in terms of trying to guard Bennett Sturts. In this game, he had 19 points, 3 rebounds, 7 of 15 from the field. But Braden Smith, he just took over. He just did more than him in the second half than Bennett Sturts was able to do, because he changes the direction of this game with 16 points, 6 of 9, all of those coming in the second half. After a 0-point first quarter, he changes the dynamic when he forces a turnover off Bennett Sturts, goes out of bounds, then follows that up with an and one, gets another and one on the other side. Braden Smith, he was so good in the second half of this game. It took him a little bit to crack in, but although Braden Smith, he played good basketball, although the defense, it struggled, Purdue comes out with a win. Ultimately, the main takeaway I'd come out of this Iowa game with is, yes, you're 6-0, and that's good, but I don't know how maintainable this is. I don't know how maintainable it is that you're going to have Braden Smith turn into a superhuman every game and have him carry this team on your back when the rest of the squad just isn't showing up, when they're cold from the floor. And on the defensive side, I don't know how maintainable this is, where your defense is giving up 70-plus points a game to teams that aren't that good. I don't think Purdue has seen the best of the Big Ten yet. I think that Purdue has been more talented than every team they've played so far in Big Ten play. So I don't know how maintainable a performance like tonight against Iowa is, where you're just not showing that effort. You're not giving the effort necessary to win important games in the Big Ten, and it may get it done against an Iowa at home, but I don't know how maintainable it is to get it done against a Michigan at home, or to get it done against a Illinois or a Michigan State. I just don't think a performance like this gets it done against a different caliber type of team. I think there are definitely some glaring concerns right now for this Purdue roster. And I'm hoping, I trust in Matt Painter to be able to fix it, but changes do need to happen on the defensive side of the ball. Guys need to start helping out Braden Smith, or else we are going to see a loss, and it may be sooner than people expect. But in this next segment, I want to hit on some player grades, who showed up against Iowa, who didn't, and who we can expect to really carry that baton the rest of the way going into these important Big Ten games. So that's coming up here next on Locked On Boilermakers. But first, as you know, there's just nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting the tickets, well, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at the checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. But Game Time isn't just for college football tickets. You can get into Mackey Arena too. If you're a Purdue fan like me, you know how tough that can be. Mackey is a tough spot to get into. But with Game Time, they take all the stress out of getting into Mackey Arena this winter. With the fees up front, you know exactly what you're paying for. And with zone seating, it's easy for you to identify what the best deal is going to be for you. So absolutely, if you're in search of college basketball, college football tickets at that, take the guesswork out of buying college tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. So Purdue comes away with a comeback victory, although not pretty, led by 16 points and 8 assists from Braden Smith. And I want to get into all the player grades here in the second segment of Locked On Boilermakers. But before we do, I do want to tell you guys about a couple cool things. The first of which, yes, it's my first season here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And I have this really big milestone. It's to get to 1,000 subscribers. It would mean a ton to me. So if you guys could hit that subscribe button. If you're new here, haven't hit that subscribe button yet. If you like what you see, it means a ton. It's free, and it really helps me out. So thank you for that. If you guys could please hit that subscribe button, it would be huge. And then the second thing, if you're an everydayer, you already know who you are, and you make this show go. Being here every single day, it means more than you could ever know. And if you're interested, we got something for you. The Locked On Podcast Network and Locked On Boilermakers are bringing you guys the Everydayer Club. And for just $5 a month, $50 a year, that's going to bring you all the ad-free Locked On Boilermakers content. Also going to get you exclusive access to that Discord chat. So I'm going to leave that link down below for you guys. And let's get into some player grades. So Braden Smith, 16 points and 8 assists in this game. I thought that he was great in the first half. He was really limited, the worst half I've seen him play all year. Iowa did a great job throwing different pressures at him to limit him to 0 points in that first half. But in the second, he was able to bounce back and, like I said, will this Purdue team to a victory. So with that being said, I can't give him an A just because that first half he didn't play well, wasn't able to get this Purdue offense going. And for those reasons, Purdue, they did get themselves into a hole. So I'm going to give Braden Smith a B performance for this game. His first half was rough. The second half was good enough in order to come back in this game. And without him, Purdue does not get a victory in this game. So I'm going to give Braden Smith a B for his performance in this one. And Trey Kaufman Renn is a guy who did have 12 points, but just 2 rebounds. I'm going to give him a D plus in this game because TKR just wasn't giving that effort. And I talked about it in the first segment, but him especially, that was the guy that just stood out to me in terms of the body language being off. But it's a bigger issue throughout this Purdue squad. And I don't know if it's just feeling like you got it in the bag, that you're the best team in the Big Ten and you can beat anybody any given night. But eventually, they're going to find out that this is not a team that is unbeatable if they play the way that they did against Iowa, because this is a performance where you face off against a team and TKR has that body language. You get yourself into a bigger hole, and it's going to be tough to come back from that. So I didn't like the way that TKR played in this game. I didn't necessarily like the way that he did conduct himself. So for that reason, I'm going to give him a D plus. Still love Trey Kaufman Renn. Still think he can be a great leader and a great player for this program, but he wasn't that tonight. So TK is going to have a D plus for me in terms of his performance. CJ had 9 points, 2 of 4 from field goal range. I thought CJ Cox was excellent in this game in terms of limiting Bennett's shirts in the first half when he was on him. That was something I talked about in the pregame show in terms of CJ just being thrown on him, saying, hey, you're our best point of attack defender, just letting him cook on Bennett. I thought he made life hard for him at times. Yes, Sturt still ends out with 19 points in this game, but a lot of those were on other guys. I thought CJ did a great job on the defensive side in this one. And then on the offensive side, just 4 shot attempts, makes 2 of them. He did enough. He was efficient enough. You know, CJ isn't going to shoot a ton of shots. I thought that he was solid with 9 points in this game. I'm going to give him a B plus for his performance in this game. He had a quiet night, but a night that was productive enough to get Purdue a victory. So I liked what CJ Cox was able to do in this one for Purdue. Fletcher Lawyer was a guy who had 11 points, 3 of 7, 1 of 3 from three-point range. He had a big shot in there where I thought, could this potentially be the Fletcher Lawyer game to start out the first half? But ultimately, he does end up cooling off. And Fletcher Lawyer, he just hasn't had that game-changing night as of late where you say Fletcher Lawyer is back, because he has been struggling to start out 2026 and even ending off 2025. I'm going to give him a C+ for his performance in this one. He made a couple shots when we needed him to start out this game, but until he has that game-changing performance, or one where I just say he really helped Purdue win in this game, it's going to be tough for me to give him a better grade, because what Fletch does give you on the offensive side, he does struggle a little bit on the defensive side. We saw that in this game, and I do want to see Fletch just have that amazing performance. We haven't seen that as of late for him, but I'm still going to give him a C+ because he wasn't necessarily bad in this game. Oscar Clough, down low, was 4 for 4, 10 points, got 4 rebounds. Purdue just not able to do much on the glass in terms of their starters in this game, and I don't know why. I don't know what was difficult for them in this game, whether it was an effort thing or just not crashing the boards, whether Iowa made it tough. But no matter what it was, Oscar Clough, he was a part of that, where he only had 4 rebounds, not typical of him. The 10 points were solid, and they were good for Purdue to just add those on. But overall, we needed him on the glass tonight, and he didn't show up. I thought Clough did enough on the offensive side to still get a good grade, but the rebounding numbers are going to hurt. We see that with TKR's 2. For Oscar Clough's 4, I'm going to have to give him a C rating for his performance in this one. He wasn't great. He wasn't amazing, but he also wasn't bad. Did enough for Purdue in this one. But Daniel Jacobsen was interesting because this is the first game I believe I've seen this year where he out-rebounds Oscar Clough. That has not been his forte throughout the course of this season, but in this game, Daniel Jacobsen does actually out-rebound Oscar Clough. Has 9 rebounds in this game, 7 points. He was pretty good off the bench, I thought. He was able to block a shot. I don't know if it hit the rim or if he was able to get it, but there was one where he got a nice block that gave Purdue some momentum. Jacobsen's going to get a B for me in this one. You know, he did enough when he was coming off the bench. He was able to get those rebounds. And when you look at the margin, he was significantly double anybody else on Purdue in terms of those rebounding margins. I think that Jacobsen actually did a lot in this game on the glass that isn't going to be talked about because of the lackluster night Purdue did have on the glass. But he was one of the lone guys that was producing, so I'm going to give him a B+ for his performance in this one. Meyer had a couple big shots in this game, and I like to see him make shots because he needs those confidence boosters. Had 5 points, 2 of 3, 1 of 1 on the 3-point. And I thought the bench overall for Purdue in this game, they were really good in terms of trying to dig back when the starters were off the floor, when Purdue just needed that type of spark. The bench was able to provide that for the Boilermakers in this game. Shot a very good efficiency all around the board. Meyer did the same. 2 of 3, 5 points. He was good. I'll give him a C+, B- for his performance in this game. Defensively, he still has a lot to grow. He still has a lot to develop. But on the offensive side, if he's able to continue to make those shots, continue to build up some confidence, I think we're in a good spot with Omer Meyer's development. Jack Benner sparked a couple big threes early, but after that wasn't able to get a lot going. There's a lot of physicality on Benner. I think we're going to see that with the small size he brings into these games. But when he can shoot the ball like he did early on, I mean, you can't keep him off the floor. You just can't right now. And while he was good, he did slow down throughout the course of this game. So I'm going to give him a C+. Those 2 shots early were big, but I just want to see him show himself over the course of 2 halves a little bit more than what he did tonight. And then Jakari Harris had 3 points, 1 of 2 from field goal range, 19 minutes. And actually, I thought Jakari Harris did have a solid night. Now, he's not going to show on the box score. The points aren't going to impress you. But on the defensive side, his ability to get in front of guys, it was better tonight than how it has been in the past few games. Although Purdue did struggle on the defensive side, I thought Jakari Harris was a little bit of a bright spot for the Boilermakers. So for that reason, I'm actually going to give him a B- for his performance in this game. And that's pretty good for where Jakari Harris has been. He has struggled to start out this year. I would like to see Jakari Harris really improve. He had a technical foul in this game defending Trey Kaufman Renn. He goes down for a rebound and just won't let go of the ball. Jakari Harris pushes a Hawkeye off of him. Didn't think the technical should have been on him, but I like the physicality. I like Jakari Harris asserting himself with that physicality. I think that's where he's going to be the best and where he can be a nice piece in the future going forward for Purdue. So a B- performance for him. And overall, for the Boilermakers in this game, I'm going to have to give them a bad grade. I think that this was a C-, D+ type performance because you do get a win, but by no means was it pretty. By no means are you in a situation where you can play that way over the course of the Big Ten season and come away with consistent victories. I just don't think you can. I don't think it was a solid performance. You do get a victory, and Braden Smith played out of his mind, put the team on his back in the second half. But outside of that, it was a little bit sketchy. I didn't really like how Purdue played in this one, so I'm going to give them a C-, D+ performance in this one, and hopefully they improve going into that West Coast trip because we sure know they're going to need it when they face off against the oldest player in college basketball and the USC Trojans. We'll have a preview out on that one tomorrow. But to finish off today's episode, I want to get into bracketology, specifically Joe Lunardi's newest bracket, where Purdue's at, and can they get that number 1 seed in the Midwest region? Up here next on Locked On Boilermakers. We've been taking a look week by week at Joe Lunardi's bracketology, how that bracket's been shaping up, and just looking at what the path is going to be for Purdue the rest of the year to achieve that goal, that being the number 1 overall seed in the Midwest region. And the reason the Midwest region is so important for you guys, if you guys haven't heard me talking about bracketology, is because if you have that region, it has the opportunity for you to play through Chicago, which for Purdue, just a few miles down the road, is a big advantage. Of course, you're probably going to have a lot more black and gold in Chicago than you're going to have anywhere else. You'd be slotted to play around the country. So that's something that I definitely want to see Purdue chase because it's going to be a big advantage going into March and then playing into Indianapolis. If you have the luxury, if you have the ability to make it there going into the Final Four, that's going to be the goal for Purdue, is that Midwest region. And the first thing that stands out to me in terms of this week's bracket is the overall amount of seeds that the Big Ten was able to get in, because I feel like there's so much conversation this year surrounding how good this conference is, how many just amazing teams there are in the Big Ten, how deep it is. But you really see it when it talks about the number of teams in the bracket projected right now. And the Big Ten has 2 more than the SEC, 3 more than the ACC. The Big Ten is projected right now to have 11 teams in March Madness, SEC at 9, which that is just kind of unheard of. One of the best years in my recent memory that the Big Ten has ever had in terms of trying to get these teams into the tournament. And I want to take a look at where some of these Big Ten teams do slot out. So Michigan is number 1 right now in the Midwest region. I believe this is even after the loss. This came out on Tuesday, so this would have been after Saturday's loss. Michigan's still at number 1 in the Midwest region. And then after that, you got UCLA at a 12 seed. They are the last 4 in, playing up against New Mexico for a chance to play Clemson. After that, going down a little bit, you got Wisconsin as a 10 seed in the Midwest region. Iowa is an 8 seed who you get a victory over last night. They're in the South region right now. Going forward, Ohio State, an 11 seed, one of the other last 4 teams in. Purdue slots in at the number 2 seed, playing in St. Louis in the South region, where Iowa State is the 1 seed projected right now, but they did just lose to Kansas, so that may change up a little bit the next time we check on bracketology. Indiana, a 10 seed in Greenville, facing off against the number 7 seed Georgia, and that is in the East region. You've got Nebraska, a 3 seed right now. You've got Michigan State, a 4 seed, and I'm trying to find the rest. Okay, USC, a 10 seed. Illinois is going to be a 3 seed. And then finally, that's it. I think we covered all of our bases there in terms of where the Big Ten teams are. And you can kind of get a little bit of a grasp on where we are right now in terms of how this bracket is situated. But for Purdue, the number 2 seed in the South region, the outlook that they would have right now, of course, Iowa State does lose, so we can expect this to change up a little bit. But the path that they would have as of right now to get to the Final Four would be round one. You have to get through Portland State as a 15 seed. Obviously, that should be no concern for Purdue. I don't expect them to get upset in the first round this year. If they do, it was a colossal failure. But right now, slotted up against Portland State. And then moving on, you got SMU or Kentucky in round two. And Kentucky, they've got their whole own set of problems. That would be a fun matchup, but there's no guarantee that they even win, make it to the second round, much less reach the tournament. So that's one to keep an eye on. But as of right now, not concerned if Purdue were to have Kentucky as a second round matchup. And then going forward into who Purdue would play in the Sweet 16, they would have their choice of either BYU, who is the 3 seed, or Villanova, 6 seed. You could also throw in an Ohio State, Texas A&M at the 11 if they were to make the Sweet 16 run. Overall, the team I'm most concerned about and pretty obvious is BYU here. AJ Dabonsta right up there in the Player of the Year runnings with Braden Smith. That would be a fun matchup, though. I would really like to see that one. That would be a tough Sweet 16 matchup, one that would probably go down as an all-time game, and one that Purdue, if they want to make the Final Four, they're likely going to have to go through a team like a BYU if they are slotted at the 2 seed. But then going forward, you got Virginia at the 5, Alabama at the 4. Not really worried about either of those teams. But then, of course, you likely have to play through Iowa State again if you're in this South region in order to make the Final Four. And that's not necessarily a spot that you want to be. So you want to make it up to that Midwest region. And the way that you do that is likely winning the Big Ten this year, having the best record in the Big Ten, beating Michigan, and earning that number 1 seed. You've already built up your resume so far with wins like Alabama, Texas Tech in the non-conference. Those are big wins when it comes time to determine where this bracket will be slotted. But I want to take a look at Michigan, their route to the Final Four, just to show you guys how much easier it is for them in the Midwest region compared to where Purdue's at right now, having to play through a BYU and then having to play through an Iowa State. Whereas Michigan, they would have their choice of Merrimack or UMass Lowell as the 16 seed. Obviously, they're not losing one of those games. But then you move on to Seton Hall or St. Louis, the 8 or 9 game. In my opinion, that's an easy win for a Purdue or a Michigan in that game. And then you get to the Sweet 16 where you face off against a Texas Tech or a UCLA, New Mexico, Clemson type team. If I'm Purdue, I would much, much rather play a UCLA or a Texas Tech who you've already beat in Chicago compared to having to play through a BYU in Houston. That's just where I would want to be. That's the better option for Purdue. And if you can get there, if you can win the Big Ten to get that route to the Final Four, absolutely, that's going to be the goal for this season. So you want to be that 1 seed. And then looking at the bottom of the bracket, Arkansas the 6, Houston the 3, which I think the Cougars will be a solid team come time for March. So that's a team I guess you can look at from the 3 spot. But Vanderbilt, the 2 seed, I would much rather have to play through a Houston or a Vanderbilt in the Elite 8 than having to run back that matchup with Iowa State. That's just my opinion on it, but I hope you guys can start to see how much better of a route you have if you're that number 1 seed in the Midwest compared to being a 2 seed in the South where Purdue is slotted right now. And of course, I don't necessarily think that's where the Boilermakers will end up this March run, where they'll want to be come time for the Selection Sunday committee to really make their selections. But obviously, we still have a long way to go. But Purdue is going to want to snag that number 1 seed in the Midwest. Right now, Lunardi has them at a number 2 seed. Still a lot of season left to play. We'll see how that progresses. We'll probably throw some more bracketology updates every week here on Locked On Boilermakers. And that's all I got for you guys today. So I appreciate you guys once again making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen today. It means more than you could ever know. And thank you to all the everydayers out there. You really make this show go. I couldn't do it without you. And with that being said, as always, boiler up, hammer down.